main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights! I'm going to do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The John Anik and Kenny Florian Podcast.
All right, UFC 251 is 5 sleeps away. We are now joined by Ian Parker on social media at Ian Parker MMA. We will update the scores from UFC Fight Night Poirier versus Hooker. And Ian, getting these decisions to hit ends up being a big swing, right? Poirier by decision. That was the swing fight. And Team Anik takes the week 5-3. The overall lead for the Duck-led squad is now 72-65. It's UFC 251. Usman versus Masvidal. We got 7 selections today. And we begin with the featured prelim on ESPN. It comes your way in the light heavyweight division. The former title challenger, Volkan Oezdemir, a -170 favorite. He welcomes the highly touted knockout artist, Jiri Prochazka, to the UFC. He's +150, and he'll put his 10-fight winning streak on the line here in his UFC debut. Ian Parker, Oezdemir, Prochazka. Who do you like?
I'm so glad that you said that name first because there was no chance I was going to get that right. You know what? Having a debut in the UFC and going against a guy Oezdemir is such a tall task for anybody. How do you not go Oezdemir here, especially at minus, I think it was 180 last time I checked. I think Oezdemir has the opportunity here to use his ground game, not get into a brawl. I think his fight IQ is risen. We saw it in the Latifi fight. We saw it in the Alexander Rakic fight. I like Volkan here 100%. I think that line should be way higher. I know his opponent is a dangerous striker, but Oezdemir is fought the best of the best.
Yeah, KenFlo. So Oezdemir had that fight with Dominic Ray, a split decision in March of 2019, a fight obviously we've talked about. Many people thought he won, but it was the way that he responded to that disappointment that really impressed a lot of people. Ilir Latifi he finishes, and then he outpoints Alexander Rakic, and now all of a sudden he's back in light heavyweight contention. Your thoughts on him here versus the newcomer from the Czech Republic, Prochazka?
Listen, I don't use these words too often, but Prochazka is a nasty prick. Let me just tell you, out of his last 10 fights, he has 9 finishes. This guy can strike. And I'm glad you brought up the Dominic Reyes fight, because I actually think on the feet, he's a more dangerous version of Dominic Reyes. Now, I don't think he's got the grappling chops necessarily to get it done. In a lot of ways, I think he's very vulnerable there. Not that Oezdemir is this great submission artist, but positionally, I think Oezdemir, can probably ride out some positions and side control, or maybe mount and steal some rounds that way. But on the feet, as good as Oezdemir is, and as good as dangerous as he is on the feet, Prochazka is just way better. The way he puts together his combinations, he could fight going backwards really well. I need points. I like the 6'4" guy from the Czech Republic. I think he gets it done, and hopefully he gives me some big points. But don't be surprised if this guy ends up fighting for the belt at some point.
I'm telling you, Flo, I'm looking forward to sitting down with him and trying to figure out why it took him so long to get to the UFC, because he is all the rage, at least in terms of the people that I'm talking to, and certainly he has a stiff test to the UFC debut against the Volkan Oezdemir. All right, pay-per-view opener is going to be at flyweight, despite the fact that Amanda Ribas is a bona fide strawweight contender right now. She's -900 against the returning Paige VanZant, who comes back at +600 for what will be, I believe, the last fight on her UFC contract. So VanZant makes her UFC debut in 2014. Only 8 fights, though, in 6 years. A lot of injuries, arm surgeries. Last fight, though, was a win and a finish. Came against Rachel Ostovich. That was back in January 2019. Any value on PVZ at +600, or are you going chalky here with Amanda Ribas nearing -1,000 right now?
I'm going so fucking chalky here. And it's not that, Paige doesn't have a chance. She's a very talented fighter. But strategically wise for your career, if she wants to be a mixed martial artist and continue to fight in the UFC, this is supposed to be like your, resurgence, and you're fighting the hottest prospect in the women's division in a very long time. Ribas is so good everywhere, and I haven't seen too many weaknesses. Paige hasn't fought, like you said, since Ostovich in January of 19. Before that, she lost to Jessica Rose Clark and losing to Michelle Waterson. I think this is a dangerous fight. I think the odds are a little wild here. I think it's because Paige probably hasn't fought in the injuries. But yeah, I mean, if there's no spread here, Amanda Ribas 100%. I think she gets it done here, and I think she's the next star.
Okay. KenFlo Ribas 3-0 in the UFC, beat Randa Marcos in Brasilia March 14th when all this shit was hitting the fan with COVID. Pahumpa is here in Las Vegas. He got COVID-19. He was unable to corner Luis Pena on June 27th. He is her chief corner. Hopefully he'll be able to make it to Abu Dhabi. But what do you think about Amanda Ribas here and moving forward, kid?
Listen, I think the UFC is kind of doing PVZ dirty here. This is a tough matchup, man. Tough matchup after tough matchup. And again, she's right now trying to renegotiate her next contract. This is not the one you want to have before you renegotiate that contract. I just don't see it going well for her. Paige VanZant is as tough as they come. She really has proven to be extremely tough and determined. But skill-wise, I think she's just outgunned in every aspect in this fight. Amanda Ribas is going to be a handful everywhere, and I see this really being her coming out party if it hasn't been shown already.
All right, next up, this could be a main event. It's a rematch of former strawweight champions Rose Namajunas, -200, Jessica Andrade, +170. Kenny, we'll have you lead it here. So Thug Rose hasn't fought since she got slammed by Andrade. It was UFC 237, May of 2019. Then Andrade turned around quickly, lost her belt to Zhang Weili. The head-to-head win. Your thoughts on Andrade versus Namajunas here in Act 2?
Should we redo that, TJ?
Yep. Do the setup again, John. Your audio cut out.
Okay. So should I set this one up again?
Yep.
Okay. All right, next up, we got a rematch of former strawweight champions Thug Rose Namajunas, -200, Jessica Andrade, +170. Flo, we'll have you lead this one here. So Thug Rose hasn't fought since getting slammed by Jessica Andrade to lose the belt. That was UFC 237, May of 2019. Only time Thug Rose has ever been knocked out. And then Andrade turned around quickly, perhaps too quickly, lost the belt in 42 seconds to Zhang Weili on the road about 3.5 months later. So Andrade was a slight favorite the first time around against Namajunas. Now she's +170, Kenny, for the rematch, despite a head-to-head win. What do you think about the second meeting coming up here this weekend?
Very interesting matchup. I think Namajunas really was picking Andrade apart in that fight. I hate to say this because it's mixed martial arts, but I think Namajunas lost that fight. Andrade didn't win that fight. That was a big mistake on the part of Namajunas. She had her first chance, being in that Kimura position where she almost got slammed on her head. You'd think, well, let me adjust things. I'm going to try to adjust things and not put myself in that situation again. She did. She did end up getting slammed again, this time on her head, getting knocked out. Not a good situation. So for Namajunas, I think she is going to fight smarter. I think, how can you not learn from that mistake? I think Namajunas picks her apart from the outside. I don't think Andrade has an opportunity to really get in on her legs or really strike with her too much. I think she's powerful. I think she's good on the takedown, but I think Namajunas is still more dangerous than her on the ground. I think Namajunas gets this fight back. I think she wins, and I think she ends up fighting for the belt. I think Namajunas is going to look very good. I have her winning. I got to give a round, right? A round in a method, or no, I don't.
Technically, you don't have to.
Okay.
So.
I see her getting a finish in and around second or third round.
And I do agree with you that Namajunas appears destined for a fight with Zhang Weili, who really wants that Thug Rose scalp on her resume. Of course, though, Ian, she's got to get through Jessica Andrade, who already has 11 UFC wins to her credit, deserves a lot of respect for putting her belt on the line in China so soon after winning it. And if Andrade wanted to move up to flyweight, she'd be an immediate contender. But at 115 pounds, you got all these former champions. You got Tatiana Suarez. What do you think about the rematch this weekend, my man?
I mean, it's hard to really best what Kenny just said. I think
it's hard. It's really fucking hard.
Yeah. It's funny. I always want Flo to lead, so I get a little bit of advantage. But then when he fucking leaves me no points to talk about, I just sit here and, just rebound what Kenny said. No, to Kenny's point, though, and really without beating around the bush, Rose beat Rose in that fight. I really don't see where Andrade – I don't know what she's going to do any different. She fights the way she fights. She's the juggernaut. She comes forward. She throws hard. She throws heavy. I think Rose's cardio will be better. And if she makes those adjustments, and it was funny, I said I was going to say third round rear naked choke for Rose. I do see her getting the finish.
Yeah.
If Rose doesn't get slammed on her head, she was dominating that fight everywhere. So I like Rose as well here.
All right, now we'll need rounds and methods the rest of the way. First of 3 title fights at UFC 251 will be for the vacant bantamweight crown. We talked about it a little bit with Ray Longo. Petr Yan minus 235. Jose Aldo plus 195. He can be had north of plus 200 in some spots. So Yan is the favorite. He's 6-0 in the UFC, Ian. He's won 9 straight overall, 14-1 the pro record. And how about this? His first UFC title shot comes against the King of Rio, the future Hall of Famer Aldo. What a great opportunity for Yan to begin his championship era against one of the biggest names in the sport. How do you handicap this title fight, kid?
It's interesting. The only person that's really tested Yan was John Dodson when he dropped him in that fight. Outside of that, Jan's done a really good job imposing his will and dominating everyone else that he's fought. I think his striking is super crisp. He's got so much power. I think his fight IQ is through the roof. Put everything with Aldo to the side, him not beating Marlon Moraes. Everyone thinks he won. To be honest, I didn't see what he did in that fight that would put Yan in danger. Kenny and I spoke about this last time. What made Aldo so dangerous was those leg kicks. And I don't think he threw any against Marlon Moraes. And if he doesn't throw any here to slow down Yan, I think Yan being the younger guy, the faster guy, the stronger guy, I think Aldo is going to be in trouble here. And I think the weight cut, even though he says it's going well, how much damage can he take? How many of those Yan, if he lands clean, can he really take here? Again, Jan's beat Faber, which in my opinion shouldn't lead to a title shot, but I'll leave bias to the side of where I think Aldo should have got there. But I do like Yan in this fight. I think he wins. I hate to see him finish Aldo. That'd be such a miserable situation for Aldo fans and for his legacy. But I think Petr Yan gets this done with a second round TKO.
All right, Petr Yan, second round TKO is the pick to click for Ian Parker. KenFlo, you're one of the foremost experts in all of mixed martial arts, particularly so when it comes to your former opponent, Jose Aldo. Talk to me, man. What does the King of Rio have for this Russian boxer that certainly looks like a future UFC champion to me?
I think Petr Yan is a guy that has a lot of knockout power. He's very fast. He's very confident. And he's that guy. He's not afraid to get hurt, to get in there and knock out his opponent. So that makes him very dangerous for Aldo. But Aldo has a tremendous amount of experience. He does have a lot of miles on him, but I don't see Petr Yan as the kind of guy who has that same kind of high volume style that Max Holloway had. I don't see him putting together combination after combination, round after round, and that kind of pressure style like Holloway does. I think he pressures you moving forward, but he doesn't throw high amount of volume. And for that reason, I like Aldo in this fight. I think Aldo, I disagree with Ian that Petr is going to be stronger than Aldo. I think Aldo is a guy who was strong at 145 pounds, and having locked up with this guy, Aldo is definitely going to be the stronger guy in there against Petr Yan. Can Yan win that fight? Absolutely. He's got the power. He is very dangerous. I think he's going to test Aldo's chin, but I think Aldo's experience, his footwork, if he's able to stay emotionally centered in this fight, I like Aldo to win by decision.
Jose Aldo by decision. The duck looks like he wants to quack with some sort of rebuttal.
I am so happy that you chose Aldo. I think you're still thinking he's the same guy that you went to war with. Look, Yan is, you don't fuck with Russians when it comes to their strength, bro. Do you see what he does to people? He those combinations he throws have murder behind all of them.
I agree.
That's my only thing with Aldo is that if you don't chop out those legs of Yan, you're not stopping him. And I haven't seen anyone be able to do that. And that was what Aldo did so well and made him so dangerous. He would kick the shit. Listen, you have the experience, man. His legs are lethal. And when you can't stand in those, where's your power coming from your punches? Nowhere. So I know you need points. I was not seeing that coming, but fuck yeah, I'm so glad that you took Aldo in that fight. Love Yan.
I think Yan defensively isn't where he needs to be a champion in this sport just yet. I think he can get there, and maybe he's made those improvements in camp. But I do think he gets hit enough to where Aldo will find his mark. I agree. I would love to see Aldo throw way more kicks. But that's a guy who has been in there with a lot of great champions. You look at the guys who Aldo has lost to. They're no joke. And I think Aldo is so close. He could taste this belt now. I think he's going to be very motivated. The difference is I think Yan is going to be a little bit more determined. I think if things get really, really difficult out there, I do think Yan is probably the mentally tougher guy. But we'll see, man. I can't wait for this fight. I'm really intrigued by it.
And you guys did a great job breaking it down, but we do need to move on to the co-headliner for the UFC featherweight title. It is a rematch between Alexander Volkanovski, and Max Blessed Holloway. Holloway was minus 200 as a favorite for the first meeting. Now Volko is minus 240. Holloway comes back at plus 200. KenFlo, we will have you lead on this co-main event. Who leaves Yas Island, the undisputed UFC featherweight champion, and how do they get it done?
You know, this has always been the most difficult challenge for Holloway, is the guy who can land those leg kicks. Now, Holloway is as tough as they come. He always finds a way to continue to move forward and put together his combinations. But we really saw a Max Holloway that struggled with being able to move as well as he normally does. Volkanovski did a great job of utilizing those calf kicks, and once you attack that nerve, it's very difficult to step the way you want, to move laterally the way you want, to get things going. And I think in a lot of ways, being the taller, rangier fighter actually hurt Max in a lot of ways. Now, I know that Volkanovski actually has the longer reach, but because Volkanovski is the shorter fighter, I think it really confused Holloway in how he was trying to punch down and land shots. He just wasn't able to do it. And I also think that while Holloway is a high-volume striker, he doesn't have the same kind of power on his feet that Volkanovski has. Now, Volkanovski can get in the pocket and trade with anyone, I think, in that division. He didn't really do that against Holloway. He got in, he got out. He utilized a lot of long-range weapons against Holloway. I think we're going to see a more determined Volkanovski. I think knowing what he knows about Holloway now after 25 minutes, I think he's going to try to land a little bit more shots with his boxing in the pocket. And I think he's also going to try to take down Holloway in the open mat a little bit more. Can Holloway make certain adjustments to make it an easier fight? Absolutely. And the route to victory for Holloway is to shut down those calf kicks. He cannot eat those, and he cannot eat those early. Otherwise, he will be a compromised fighter. I think Volkanovski also can make a lot of adjustments to make it an even easier win. If there is an easy win against someone like a Max Holloway, I do think Volkanovski gets the win. I think he gets it done by decision yet again. I think it's going to be a close fight. It's going to be a tactical fight. I'm really intrigued to watch this as a mixed martial artist, but I still think Volkanovski has some other tricks up his sleeve that he didn't quite use in that fight. I like Volko for the win.
You know how nice it is for me to just sit here high as a billy goat in Vegas and listen to you guys break down these fights, and all I got to do is tee up. Ian, it is going to be interesting for us to sit down with Max Holloway in Abu Dhabi to get some more specifics on his training camp and the extent to which it was compromised. You guys are still laughing, but it seems like Holloway really had some hurdles with this quarantine and the restrictions. But we're sitting here on Monday. He's plus 200 against Alexander Volkanovski. What do you think, Ian Parker? Who wins the co-main here?
I'm trying to catch my breath here with that comment, because I swear I'm watching, both your reactions to each other and John just like, and I wasn't sure if he was frozen or if he was just enjoying the breeze.
Mesmerized.
It was so good. You're just, I hope if you're like this during the fights, I swear to God, I'm going to lose it. That was amazing.
Bro, can you imagine me walking into Sidyod Tong in 2008, meeting Kenny Florian for the first time? I was fucking shaking. I mean, Jesus. All right. As you were, Ian, as you were.
Well, now we know how you're so super relaxed. Kenny's sitting back and you're stoned as a fuck.
I know.
Amazing. Just sit back. I'll take you guys to the promised land real quick here. So, listen, I think the way Kenny broke it down again with Volkanovski is spot on. I'm a huge Max Holloway fan. I will tell you, I'm a little concerned with some of the things he's been saying. I don't necessarily buy into, like, when Max really take his rematch opportunity with very little training, not seeing his coaches, doing it through Zoom, I don't necessarily buy into that. But the fact that he's even saying that concerns me. Like, since when has Max Holloway needed to play mind games with anybody to kind of throw them off? And Eugene Behrman is too smart. City Kickboxing is too good of a team overall. And Volkanovski is too focused of a fighter. Outside of fighting, he does TikTok videos with his kids, so that he's all about that life. Right. At first, I was like, Max Holloway plus 200 is amazing. But right now, how do I not take Alexander Volkanovski with the team he has with the focus? I was all about try to bury Kenny here with that plus 200 dog. But at the moment, until you do your interview with him, John, and I see how Max is during the week, I'm going to go with Volkanovski also for the decision. You know, I think Max starts off too slow with everybody. Round 1 and round 2, if he doesn't push forward and he's sitting on his bike too much and takes those calf kicks, I don't think he comes back in rounds 3, 4, or 5 this time, because I don't think Eugene Behrman will let Volkanovski do it. So Alexander the Great, unanimous decision is where I'm at right now as well.
All right, so you like more of the same, Volkanovski on points over Max Holloway. All right, main event. Woo! For the undisputed UFC welterweight title, Kamaru Usman about minus 275, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal plus 215. All right, so Kamaru Usman is 1 win shy of tying George St. Pierre's record for consecutive welterweight wins. If you know Kamaru, you know how much that means to him. He's 11-0 in the UFC, but he's only defended this belt 1 time. He was preparing to face his teammate Gilbert Burns. Instead, it will be the legend Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Ian Parker, who wins the main event at UFC 251?
There's so many questions I have here. You know, has Masvidal been training for a 5-round fight? That's the biggest question. Has he been training? Probably. I saw on Instagram he was at Chima in Fort Lauderdale, which, John, if you've ever been there, you get the meat sweats after 7 minutes of eating that steak. And you don't go there to cut weight. You go there to cut that and accept the fact that you're walking out of there knowing you ate fillets wrapped in bacon. And that's true. You know, it really is. My concern here is Masvidal's biggest weakness always has been once he's been put on his back, he's had trouble getting up. And Usman is a huge guy at this division. You know, Masvidal, in my opinion, is still a 55er who's had tremendous success just at 170. I think Usman's size, I think his power, and his cardio. He's been training for the 5-round fight. You know, as much as I'd love to see Masvidal win, the story, the marketing, the insanity that will happen if Street Jesus pulls this off, I think this is going to be a Kamaru Usman decision. I just see it happening that way. I don't think he's going to fuck around on the feet at all. If he does, Masvidal can knock him out. But, man, I wish that this wasn't a short notice fight for all the reasons why I'm saying I'm a little concerned. And he's got 20 pounds to cut in 6 days, which we've seen before. These guys are pros. Masvidal will be able to do it. Yeah. I got here by decision for all those reasons, though.
And at least for Gamebred, the scale does not have to read 155. Last time Jorge Masvidal fought for an undisputed title, it was the Strikeforce Lightweight Championship, Kenny, against Gilbert Melendez, December 17th, 2011. And there are just a lot of people out there that would love to see a guy like this, fighter's fighter, who has spent a lifetime in the game, rewarded by becoming an undisputed UFC champion. The question is, what does he have for Kamaru Usman on Saturday night?
Listen, I think he has fearlessness on his side. I think he certainly has knockout power. He has an insane amount of experience. He's a slick fighter who can fight going forwards, backwards, laterally. He's got a lot of nice tools to try to get back to his feet. He's got a couple submissions up his sleeves in the form of front chokes, which I think could pose some problems for Kamaru Usman. The way that he shifts his stances, he cuts the distance very quickly, and that throws a lot of people off, as he did against Darren Till. He could fight lefty. He could fight righty. All those things that he can do, I still don't think it's going to be enough. Can he knock him out? Absolutely. And if he does it, he's probably going to do it early. I see this fight going one of two ways. He knocks out Usman early, or Usman just basically grinds him down till the very end of that 5th round and wins by decision. I think that for him taking this fight on short notice and all the things that he needs to deal with, from cutting around 20 pounds to, that long ass flight to Abu Dhabi. And I've done it, and it is not fun. And I've done it sick, and it was brutal. That's kind of what it's going to be like, cutting weight on a plane for that long, being cooped up, and then being cooped up in a hotel room for 48 hours. And you have to cut weight and get focused for a huge fight, a championship. This is a lot to deal with, man. Now,
yeah, man.
Listen, you got the right guy. Masvidal's pretty much seen it and done it, but I don't know. I mean, you look at all those things that he's got to deal with, and the fact that stylistically, that is the worst matchup, and one of the biggest dudes in the welterweight division who has had the luxury of having a full camp. for me, it's just too many strikes against Masvidal. I would love to see Masvidal pulled off, and he can, but I just don't see it happening. I like Kamaru Usman by decision as well. The guy's an absolute savage. He's Mr. Consistency, and he better not get overconfident, though. He better not go out there thinking that he can just strike with someone like Masvidal just because he did against someone like Colby Covington. Yeah. The route to victory for Usman is something he has done many times throughout his career. Utilize your strikes to get to the clinch, get him up over against the cage where he can't utilize a lot of, speed, and let him carry your weight, shoulder your weight, get him down to the ground, and grind him down.
Ian, you got something, my man? You're just grinning ear to ear.
No,
You're just enjoying
Kenny
the
Florian.
content.
I didn't say Kenny Florian, ladies and gentlemen, bringing the fucking heat for Fight Island this week. You know when Kenny's ready for this, he's up in the camera. He's got his hand out like he was reaching for the cage. It's like he was coaching Usman. He's like, Kamaru, get him up against the fucking cage. No, I think – listen, this is one of those fights where if I get to the last leg in the parlay and Usman is my last guy, I'm going to hedge with Masvidal and say – let's fucking hit that underdog. Right. Let's go. It's just, it's an exciting fight. I kind of wish this would have been one of those so that Masvidal took a full camp. Right. It'd be a way different breakdown. It's just, I hate to sound stupid going, but it's really true. I think Masvidal has to throw that flying knee or do something crazy in the first round because Usman will steal rounds with his wrestling and his size against the cage, without a doubt. Kenny, you hit it on the head, pal.
All right, Ian, quick pick on the way out. Intriguing matchup here. Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu, minus 120, taking on Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, who is the even money underdog. Salikov slightly favored, trying to extend his UFC winning streak to 4. Easy dos Santos has been ranked in the past. He's won 8 of his last 9. Just need a winner here. Salikov or Easy dos Santos?
Easy dos Santos.
KenFlo, what do you think?
Wow. Yeah, I think it's a tough fight, but I'm going to go with Salikov.
All right. I like that you guys are split there. All right. We got to get on out of here. Sorry for the technical issues today. Hopefully my man TJ and Cody Merrill can clean it up. Thank you to our guests, Ray Longo, Ian Parker, AnikFlorianPodcast.com if you want merchandise, MerakiBJJ.com if you want to check out KenFlo's Jiu-Jitsu School. That is live and open. It has been for the past 4 weeks, I think. Entering week 4, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Give or take, week 3. Yeah. All right. If you want to hit the voicemail line, 857-301-8994, and we will play some of your voicemails after UFC 251 on the program next week. And we'll be back with you probably Sunday, July 12th, the day after UFC 251. With that, for Ian and KenFlo, TJ, Cody, and everybody else, John Anik saying so long for now. Appreciate everybody watching and listening and ordering the fucking merch. We'll talk to you next Monday. Yo, later.